teach, but you know,
So is it recording?
he gives classes and he has a lot of supporters that he has to meet with and.
Because he grew up here and he still has a lot of connections.
It says it's
Oh,
recording,
okay.
actually.
So he
You
had
can
that,
just see
that
him.
night.
You can just see him when you drive him to the airport,
Yeah.
right? You didn't come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Watch your mouth. Bye.
That's the way with my kids, they're so busy.
Okay.
The best time is when you're in the car with them.
Yeah.
You get them all to yourself.
Undivided.
Yep.
Yeah.
John, how are you?
Doing okay.
Good. Kids? What? Kids are normal? That's all we can ask for. Hi, Shelley.
Hello.
Are you doing double duty tonight?
I'm not Angie, but I'm playing Angie on TV tonight.
Yeah.
Yes, so I think we're good to go. I think we're recording. Walt, can you hear us? You're muted.
Yes, indeed. Can you hear
Can you
me?
hear us?
Yes.
We can't hear
We
you.
can't hear you if you're talking.
Can you put Walt on the screen? Can you make him big
Well,
instead of mine?
can. Maybe I should sit over here tonight. Just for some reason. Do you want him to be bigger the whole time?
And just while she's doing that, Jaden called me and said, I'll come if
Oh,
you,
how about that?
I'll come if you
Is that
have
okay?
anything for a quorum.
But we can't
Can
hear.
you say
Walt.
something?
Can you hear
No,
now?
we're not hearing you.
Wow, my audio's,
Mute. Ask to unmute, it says.
Yeah, click that.
try this. How's that? Hello?
Yeah, you're
It's
unmuted.
the, oh, you're muted on the TV.
Corner.
Where?
Yeah, right there.
Okay.
The whole
What now?
Computer, no, it's still muted.
I'm pushing the unmute button.
Do you have a mouse that you can click on that? Or not?
Yeah, it's showing that I'm not. Audio.
Well, there's an X on the sound.
Hit the speakers in the computer.
Can you get your mouse all the way down to the lower right?
Oh, maybe now. Try now, Walt.
How are things? Good evening?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
On you.
okay.
Is this an okay view, Ken?
Yeah, but we don't need to see ourselves.
Well, it's just because there's 3 online, so then they can see you guys
Oh,
too.
okay. That's great, thank you.
Actually, there's 6 online, attendees, 6.
Well, I'll have to
Let
watch
me
my.
make sure no one else needs to be promoted to panelist here. Oh, I don't know who Stephanie is. Angie's on.
No, that's her
Maybe we
AI.
better allow her to talk.
No, that's Angie's note taker. It's an AI.
Oh, it's an AI, okay. Then I think we're good, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
you're doing great, Shelley.
yeah, we'll leave it there so you can see who's on. Okay,
All right, well, let's begin. And public comment. Shelley, you want to ask if there's anybody online, or I can do that, can they can hear me. Anybody online want to make a comment? Please raise your hand.
yes, I will allow to talk. We have one hand raised. Can you please identify yourself? And we ask you to unmute yourself. If they're talking, we can't hear them. Let's see here. Giving you permission to talk.
Shelley, is that for me? 1704.
583-1704.
Yeah. So this is Patty Perrin, and I wanted to make 2 comments actually in regards to the gas station. One is that I don't know if it was the planning commission or whoever that didn't pay very close attention to the notes that are in the specs for the building, because it shows on the picture that it was actually, the small brick with red brick for the trim, but in the notes, it actually indicates CMU, which is concrete masonry units, which is the decorative concrete blocks. So, and then as far as the brick is concerned, it shows that it's the veneer, which is fine, but the color and pattern, it states as selected. So I'm not quite sure if nobody paid attention to this, because according to our building codes, it was supposed to be similar in character and design to the existing structures. Not only myself, but other people are so irritated over this building that looks like a sore thumb in town, doesn't match anything. And like I say, I don't know whose responsibility it was to make sure that the design was appropriate. Anyway, so that's all I have to say on that. And then the other thing is on the sign, that they want a variance for this sign. And the only thing that I can say in regards to that is that whoever needs to pay close attention to whatever it is that they are looking for, because if they don't, it's going to be just exactly like the building. It's not going to be anything that is appropriate for the city of Yamhill as it stands right now. So that's all I have to say.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Okay, Ken?
Yes.
Yes, with regard to comments on signs or anything else related that we have a public hearing on or planned for, we probably should hold those comments because otherwise that counts as testimony. So if they want to make a general comment about the gas station, fine. If they want to make a comment about signs, then they're going to have to wait until we actually have the hearing.
Got it. All right, any other public comment? All right, no presentations, public hearing, CUV 24-6. Uh-oh. Do I have my,
Okay, Ken?
yeah, I think I need to read the beginning of a public hearing words.
Right. You are, okay, just for the record, we received a email today from the applicant who would like to continue this hearing until December.
Great.
Okay, this evening, all that you need to do is just open, stating that the hearing is now open, and then agree to continue it until the December 16th meeting. And at that juncture, we will reconvene. And then I'm thinking that would be probably the best use of your time to go through your opening statements where public testimony would
Thank you.
occur.
You're sparing me an unnecessary reading of that. All right, well, the meeting has been opened. We have been asked for a continuance to December 16th. And we might as well take a vote, get a motion and approve that. We're going to make a motion to continue this hearing to December 16th.
I'll make a motion.
And a second?
I will second.
All right. What say ye, Lyndon? Yay or nay?
Yay.
Yay, more yay?
Richardson, aye.
Freininger, aye.
All right. And I'm now going to close the meeting unless there's anything else.
Okay, just for clarification, so there's no misunderstanding, this hearing for CUV 24-6 will be continued to the December 16th Planning Commission meeting to be held at the City Hall beginning at 6:30. So we just need to have a date, time, and place certain. So I'm just clarifying that.
Great. It's now in the record. Thank you all.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll close that hearing. And now we have And next on the agenda, exterior lighting regulations. And Walt, do you have a staff report for that?
Yes, indeed. Okay, I'm unmuted. There we go. Okay. As you're well aware, we've gone through a number of work sessions and public hearings on the matter of exterior lighting. Last month, I brought to you some of the concerns by the city council. We had a work session to discuss some changes. And so what is before you today is, I'm hoping, the final iteration of the material. This will create a new chapter, 10.66. It's exterior lighting standards. In your packet, you will find an Exhibit A that includes the final material along with the modification as well. There was just a handful of changes that went through there. So what I want to do this evening is just go through this one more time and identify where some things were changed. And again, as a public hearing, you have an opportunity to make additional modifications if you see fit. Or if you're satisfied with the material, you can vote to recommend approval to the city council. There will be a second hearing before the city council on this matter. So going through the material, we start off with the purpose statement. That's pretty much been left intact. I've kind of narrowed it down a bit, as I know it at the last meeting, to be a little bit more, I think, focused. The guiding principles still remain. Those support the purpose statement. It sort of gives direction on what we're doing. These are not criteria. It's just sort of guidance, if you will. Definitions are still there. As you recall, we dropped a couple at the last meeting. I think one of them was street lights, and there was one other one that was dropped. The date of adoption, I hope we got this right this time, January 1, 2025 will be the adopting date. Under applicability, I think the important thing is that this does not, I want to repeat, apply to residential uses. This is solely for commercial uses, facilities, as well as public uses and facilities. So again, I want to emphasize residences are not subject to the regulations here. The general requirements were basically addressed solely for commercial uses. Again, we're pretty much consistent with what we've been talking about. We have fully shielded, that's still a requirement. Maximum brightness at 1500 lumens, still a requirement. Canopy and eave lighting hasn't changed. Exterior display and sales, this is like outdoor kind of lighting levels. All that is basically the same. Parking lot lighting, I think the important thing is that the lighting remain on the parking lot and does not migrate to adjacent properties. We have a lighting curfew. Basically, lights are on when the business is on. When the business is closed, the lights go off. However, there's a grace period of an hour before or after business hours that to account for opening and closing. Also, this does not impact, obviously, 24-hour operations. Security lighting, we had a new section that we reviewed last time. It was for security lighting. And I think there was some real concerns that businesses would not have that availability. The way the code was written, we did include those provisions for security lighting. Signage, again, there's no change in the lighting limitation for signage. Prohibitions, lasers, searchlights, upward pointing lights, blinking, flashing lights, that sort of thing. Building trim, though, may be done in neon. And we also allow exemptions, if you will, for lighting the U.S. flag or emergency situations. And also we clarified what an emergency situation might be. There are exemptions moving along. Existing lights are exempt but must eventually conform. We have provisions on string lights. And again, these are basically or most likely to be in the commercial areas. Decorative lighting for special events is exempt. Again, the U.S. flag, athletic fields, temporary lighting needing for emergencies. And finally, there are no limitations on holiday lighting. We just removed that provision since we're focusing on commercial. Existing non-conforming lighting must eventually conform. I think we agreed after some discussion on a 2-year time period, allows everyone to go ahead and sort of budget or plan for the changes. And then finally, if it's a new application, a lighting plan is required. With regard to the findings, which is page 3 of the staff report, I will just simply summarize to note that DLCD has had no issue with this. There are no issues with regard to the statewide land use planning goals, and the findings basically support what we've done before in the previous iteration that you reviewed. At this point, I think we've covered the bases. I've made no other changes to what we looked at the last time, except as noted in the report. And again, if you look at Exhibit A, if items were removed, it was stricken. If items were added, it was put in with underlying and the italics. Also bear in mind what's also changing is that all the definitions in this section will be added to 1008-010, which is the definition section. And also there is one change in the sign. We have a provision for festoon lighting, which is really string lights. And since we now have regulations on that, that would be eliminated. So that's the extent of it. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Walt, are we did I hear you say we're in a public hearing right now?
Yes, we are.
Well, I didn't, okay.
No, you don't have to because this is a legislative matter. So you don't have to go through the quasi judicial.
Thank you.
Okay. You're
All
fine.
right. Any questions?
No, sounds like what we talked about.
Yeah, we don't have any questions. Well, I think this is pretty straightforward.
Well, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And if everything seems to be in order, I think at this juncture, unless there's additional testimony, you can make a motion to recommend approval to the city council.
So do we want to ask our folks online if they have a comment?
Oh, definitely. This is a public hearing, just so if there's any testimony.
Okay, so if you have something you'd like to say, comment, testimony, please raise your hand.
We have one. Patty, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. So I have a question in regards to the street lights.
We're not doing
And I know,
doing question and
well,
answer.
I know. So we're not going to ask any, we can't ask any questions in regards to the street lights for this.
You can make a statement.
So comment.
She asked a question. She asked if she could ask. She confirmed whether or not she could ask a question. So, Patty, I think the point, you can make a comment if you have concerns or address those.
Okay, so my concern is, and I'm not quite sure what has happened, but I'm about a block from the big yellow Victorian house that is over on Highway 240. And on the other side of that there's two street lights together. Something has changed with one of those street lights, and it shines directly into my house now. So when it comes to changes for those, is there going to be anything that the city can do when it comes to that type of situation happening?
I could possibly respond to that.
Sure, well,
Okay. Essentially, ultimately, if this goes into effect, the city has a certain period of time in which those lights must conform. In fact, if I recall, I think at the last meeting, Ken, you brought some interesting photos in of some of the streetlight issues. And I think that was one of the reasons we went through bringing streetlights back into the requirements that they be shielded and shine down instead of people's backyards and windows. So I think the regulations probably cover that. It's just a matter of time before the city needs to comply.
right, the city is not exempt.
Okay.
So, yeah. All right, anyone else have testimony? Seeing none? Well, are we ready to close this hearing?
Yes, and correct. You're closing the public testimony, and now you're rendering providing a recommendation to council.
Great. Okay, we'll close the public hearing, public comment, and now we're ready to have a discussion and then move toward a motion and a vote.
I don't really have anything to,
No,
I think it sounds fine. I think Patty's concern would be addressed by the streetlights, or this would help address those for concerns.
Yeah, it's in the ordinance, right? Yes.
So do you want a motion?
Yeah, unless there's anything else, we've worked on this for I don't know how long.
years.
Yeah.
I think you were working on it when I started 6 months ago,
6 months, okay.
at least that long.
And we got to 2 years. I think that was the preference of the city council. Right. So they answered that for us. And other than that, there weren't any big changes. I see the holiday was struck out, but it seems like I'm just a little confused, Walt, on the changes that are here seem like changes that were made when, I guess is my question.
Last meeting.
It would be what we discussed at the May meeting.
Okay,
No,
so,
excuse me, what we discussed at last month's meeting. There we go, October. Okay, there, whoa, yes. My memory isn't that good, but no, we discussed that. In other words, the whole idea was why limit a business when it comes to holiday decorations? It just didn't make any sense. And if someone wanted to have bunting up for 4th of July, more power to them.
yeah, and the other changes are all local streetlights shall be
Right.
shifted. And
Correct. And also, we did expand the emergency services just to clarify some of the issues with that. I think that about covers most of the big ones. As I said, I didn't do any other editing along the way.
yeah, and that's basically what it took to, the security lighting.
Was new.
But that's just new, and so it's underlined. What page is that on?
That would be page 10. I didn't underline it because you accepted that at the last meeting. So that was kind of, everything you see here is just changes between October and tonight.
And the city council has seen, I mean, so they read it over, they made recommendations. And have they seen this revised?
No.
No, they have not seen it. So we need to be confident that we've met all of their questions. A lot of their questions were moot because they said, well, we can't be turning off streetlights, and that was never part of the provision. And there were a few other concerns that were not anything we had to do anything about. But the 2 years, the security lighting, I think were their main concerns.
What? Oh, okay. I was just seeing it. Oh,
He's
we're
looking.
okay.
And so, well, we're confident that we've addressed their concerns.
I think so. I had a chat with one of the council members whose name I forget at this point, but I went through the list of concerns that Shelley put together. He was confident that that's exactly what the council talked about, and I indicated how we would go ahead and address them. If you recall last month when I went through the staff memo, I highlighted those concerns, and at the end of the memo, I specifically noted what sections address those concerns. So I think I'm it's like everything else in planning. We do the best we can, give it the best shot, and the council has ultimately the option of saying yay or nay.
Shelley, did you go down through their concerns with an eye to what has been done? Would you agree that we've met their concerns?
Yeah, so the parks, safety at Beulah Park,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you feel like you've met their concerns,
Well,
but
I think that would be the security.
park
light.
safety is, security can be all night, but it's gonna have to be shielded, it isn't now, so.
that would be that one.
Yeah,
Streetlights, which I think you just addressed.
yeah.
ODOT approval. That was an issue that I think we decided maybe wasn't something we were concerned about.
You did mention ODOT here in the back, didn't you, Walt?
Yeah, I did. And I think the issue was that on ODOT and PGE was controlling the lights. And I think there was a misunderstanding that we would be turning streetlights off. And that was certainly not the intent. So it was really a moot issue.
Or just change the lighting on state highways. They didn't think we had the permission.
So I see under exemptions, H on page 11 is, one of them is government authority, lighting under the authority of the Oregon Department of Transportation or required by federal and state laws is exempt.
Right. We can't touch it if they're in charge.
Yeah.
So we can't shield those lights.
Okay, let's continue through the list.
Is that accurate, though? We cannot shield those lights?
You could always ask, but they ultimately have control. And if they choose not to, I don't think we have a lot to say on it. That's why the emphasis on shielding was on the local streets that the city controls.
You know, I did do some research on what they would ask of themselves, what they say they will do. And they have a foot candle spillage rate. And my question is, if we want to follow through or we want to help a homeowner follow through, man on the corner, I think his name's Don, across from the gas station, those streetlights are really impacting him. And he's right there in the corner of 47, and because it's 47, I'm thinking maybe it's ODOT and not the city. I don't know. They look the same as the city lights, but so how those would be shielded, and are those within their guidelines now? I don't know. I don't really know how we would move forward on that if someone in the city wanted to pursue that.
I think the first thing to do is identify the light in whose jurisdiction. So if it's a city light, then obviously the city is going to be responsible. If it's ODOT, then I think at that juncture, maybe work with the individual and help, find out who to contact at ODOT to discuss highway lights and just sort of identify the situation. So I think the first thing is who owns the light and then go from there.
Maybe at city council next week, I'll ask Jason which are ours and which aren't.
Ah, good point.
Okay, and if it's interesting that they're ours, then it's like, okay, Jason, you got 2 years. And,
I'll do it.
if they're theirs, I'll look into that requirement they have of themselves and see if I can figure out whether they're in compliance or not, and then see what the next step is after that. Just if it's a hobby of anybody's, I guess it's not really our job to do that, but if I'm kind of interested in people being comfortable in their homes. Okay,
So the next one was PGE, and that was the moot one, I think, because we're not gonna be changing.
right, right.
Changing wattage, we're just simply shielding, correct? Okay. And then the businesses, they were concerned about security, which I think the security one's addressed. Clear definitions on what constitutes emergency lighting, which I think that was
Did that.
addressed.
Good.
And then the last one, city properties, concerns about turning off lights could create security issues, burden on the city budget. That was the 2-year. And they would like to adjust the requirement to be longer than 6 months. That was a 2-year. So security issues with city properties and then longer than 6 months.
Yeah, the 2-year, here's what they were talking about. The budget is already done for, I don't know when it runs out, but there's a long time when the budget can't be touched for about a year. Is it brand new?
Well, I mean, the budget for July, June 24, 25 goes to June of this year. And then we'll begin the budget for 25, 26 in January. So that budget would begin in July, but we may or may not have the funds in that budget. So that would be the discussion we're having right now in
Yeah.
January. So I think that's what gives
And
the,
you need some time to figure out how much is it gonna cost to
Right.
do this. And so, anyway, that's why it's about budget cycles that are long. Yeah, I think that was the main reason it went to 2 years.
that's right. It is.
But it also will run 6 months into the next year, when you think about it.
You mean because it'll start, so they'd have June, let's see, if it takes effect January 25, January 26, yeah, they'd have till January 27 when they, yeah, wouldn't we? Yeah,
So it also spread it out, the cost was spread out over 2 years too.
Yeah,
They were just
well,
concerned
but 2
about that.
budget years too.
Yes. Yep, so that's good. Okay, and that's all the concerns? Well, I'm feeling more comfortable. We reviewed the changes, we've gone over what came back to us.
and we do have the mayor on if she wants to add anything, I don't know.
And then, so I think we're ready to make a motion, and it'd be good in the motion to reference this DCA 24-03.
I would move to refer CUV 24-06 to the city council.
Oh, next one down.
I'm sorry, DCA 23-03, read the wrong one, to the city council.
All right, and shall we go down the line? Carl, aye. Moore, aye.
Richardson, aye.
Freilinger, aye.
Great, passed unanimously. And we'll move on to other business. So Walt, you have housing technical assistant grant update. And would you again tell us the differences between those and how they overlap?
Well, actually, it's kind of an interesting situation. We got 2 grants, both through DLCD, one through their housing program, the other through their technical assistance. The housing one was a significantly large grant, I think 47,000 and change. And I think they even added some more money to that. And so it's looking at housing issues, everything from the comprehensive plan right up through buildable lands, looking at the code on what changes we may want to consider. the technical assistance portion of it is more about the downtown, looking at how do we address, making it look nicer, changes, et cetera, et cetera. At this point, the group is working away. I think Shelley might be able to add a little bit. Don't want to put her on the spot. Sorry if I did, but it's the group is working along. They're looking at preliminary information, some preliminary assessment. I've been able to respond to some of their concerns. And then obviously this Thursday is the public meeting at City Hall, looking at comp plan and code issues with regard to housing. So that's kind of where we stand. The group is on track. And so I don't think there's any glitches or anything along the way. So the group is on track and they'll meet the budget and deadline.
Yeah, I can add a few things. So
Thank you.
I'll summarize it excellently as always. But so the last Citizen Advisory Committee, which was meeting number 2 out of 3, we went through the code updates for housing and downtown in great detail, so detailed to the extent that we were not able to get through the entire agenda of the meeting. We actually need to add a third meeting now for the committee to go through the comprehensive plan, which we're going to do at some point after the new year. But this Thursday is the public meeting for the citizens to come and hear from the consultants directly, the overall plan, the overall findings so far, the recommendations so far, and then be able to weigh in to what they agree or disagree with, what they, what they would like to see in housing opportunities, and then also the downtown updates. So actually at the back of your packet, there's a flyer about it, and it's been distributed throughout town. And I actually have an email in my drafts getting ready to send to you all tomorrow. I'm just waiting for the final PowerPoint presentation to be able to attach to it. But Planning Commission, City Council, Water Advisory, Economic Development Committee are all being emailed and invited and encouraged to come in person. And then we're also asking, we've been promoting it on Facebook and on our website and at the trunk or treat, so that hopefully we get a full house of people coming to hear and providing their feedback, because it's just a critical component. So we'll be adding a third Citizen Advisory Committee meeting after this public meeting, and then there will be some public hearings also when we reach a little bit further down the road for additional opportunities for public comment. So that's where we are with it, but Walt's right, we're on schedule, we're on budget. Our first deadline to be reimbursed for the grant is this month, and I am responsible to get that turned in the 30th, and I've got all my documents in order at this point, but there's a few more coming in, and so we'll be on track for that. So it's going well. Planning Commission is definitely wanted at this meeting. If you can, I'll be there.
I did not get that flyer, but I will get an email.
It's not in the back of yours?
Yeah, it's at the very back.
Back of the packet.
Here's my back.
Here, have mine. I have many.
Can you hand that to me, Sean? Thank you. Thank you.
And you'll, like I said, probably get an email tomorrow as well, but I'm just waiting on one final document to send with it.
Thursday, that's like day after tomorrow.
So,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, so we just got an update on the committees that are working on the housing technical grant. Did you have anything more on that, or should we move on?
All set.
Great. Transportation system plan?
Okay. As you are aware, we did apply for a TSP through the Transportation Growth Management program, and it was for a transportation system plan. Ours is about 24, 25 years old, way out of line, and it really needs to be updated. We did apply, we did not make it. However, the interesting news is it was very competitive. Region 2, ODOT Region 2, There were 14 applications. They awarded 4, and we came in 5th.
Ah,
So close so far. So I followed up and I chatted with the folks at ODOT, like, okay, what did we miss? And I think part of it is that um, they thought we had a solid reasoning for the request. There was no issue there. They think after these 2 projects get done, the housing and the downtown, they think it might be a little bit more um, supportive, that it'll really tie things together. And I think we'll have a lot more to work with. Also, um, I had a little bit of advice on how to maybe format the thing a little bit differently, but it was just like minor technical stuff. So basically, we're almost there. And as the gentleman from ODOT informed me, he said, you know how it works. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, and it's the same thing here. We keep applying. I think we will eventually be successful. I think next time round, the fact that we would wrap up these 2 projects, I think we'll have a better handle on how things mesh together, and I think we'll have a much stronger application.
great.
Walt, when did you say we could apply for that again?
This is a biennial thing, so the original request went out in 2023. I want to say it's going to be happening sometime in 2025, that they will be asking cities whether or not they plan to apply. And so the standards are basically the same. There is no, the goals and objectives are basically the same. So it should be pretty straightforward.
Thank you.
All right, is that it on, you ready for Title 11 update?
Well, I'm not ready for Title 11, but I'm getting closer to getting ready to do it. I have a rough draft completed. A few other things cropped up for the city. But I'm winnowing away, and I have it organized, and I fully intend to have that done. I'd like to get it done by the end of this month and send it to you, so you would have at least a week and a half, 2 weeks to look at it, and then just have a review on December 16th.
Would you remind us why we're no longer combining 10 and 11?
A couple of things here, and I think that's a very good question, Ken. Part of the issue is that they're proposing code amendments for Title 10. And in discussing it with Steve and Doug, who were working on the grant projects, we thought it might be really confusing trying to throw everything together. And I guarantee we will miss some connections someplace. So we all agree that ultimately you want to merge titles 10 and 11 together as one unified development code. Now may not be the time, given everything else that's going on in Title 10. So keep Title 11 as a standalone document. I've made sure that we have connections between the two, and that we cover other issues such as how we address PUDs, or at least referencing how we do it. And so at that juncture, and also obviously keeping up with the changes in state law, to take that separately as sort of a separate meal, if you will, and then down the road we can kind of combine these two. And it just seemed to be a lot easier and a lot less complex, I think, to do it that way. So we'll stick with Title 11, and it just made a lot of sense to everybody. Otherwise, you would be going through a heck of a lot of stuff at one time, instead of focusing on land divisions, then focusing on housing and the downtown.
So let me see if I understand. The work of the housing grant and the technical assistance grant is going to be suggesting changes to be made in Title 10.
That is correct. There will be some recommended changes. Part of the work that was done by Doug Rux was to actually look at areas that needed improvement and revisions. So we're getting a little, both a code assessment and looking at housing as well as the downtown. There's certainly going to be recommendations that they are making. And it made sense to, I think, everyone who's working on these two projects um, to separate that from your work on the land divisions. Um, Totally separate issues at this point. And again, combining them under one document at this point was just maybe a bridge too far.
I see. And so as these suggestions come in, we will be considering them. We will be working on implementing them in Title 10. And if at the same time we were trying to merge 10 and 11, it would be too much. Okay, I understand.
I think so, Ken. I think it would just be, personally, I think it'd be even confusing from my end. I
Sure.
wanted to make sure that, for example, if I found something that didn't mesh with land divisions in terms of what they proposed, they have a grant working on that. How do we resolve those issues? If we can settle them separately, then down the road, in fact, one of the things they definitely will recommend, in fact, they're coming back with like a long range to-do list, is to merge the two documents. I think it's a little too early. I think it makes sense to do it, but I think it's just a little too early, and we'll do that down the road.
Okay, great. I feel like I'm going to a class and the homework keeps getting put off, and I'm happy about that, but gee, I'd like to get to it at some point.
No,
So we're just going to be looking at a year or more of paying attention to this, and I'm just looking forward to learning a lot about, how what we're gonna be doing. I mean, I've already enjoyed what we have done, and putting it together, I think it'll be it'll be a great accomplishment for us.
I think so too. I think the other thing too, coming right around March or so, you're going to start getting real busy with code work.
Oh, from the technical grant?
Yes.
Technical assistance grant.
Yes, and that's
Okay.
why I'm trying to get this thing done now, so you can probably get something adopted by January or February for the council to look at. So then we can go to the other stuff.
Okay, so you're thinking you might have a draft of 11 for us a week or so before our next meeting?
Oh, I'm trying to get it maybe 10 to 14 days before.
Great.
Yeah, I'm really pushing on this one.
Okay, well, we'll clear our headspace for that. We're gonna have, and with this, some kind of a deadline you're giving us, we want to get it done before the Title 10 recommendations start rolling in.
That is true, at least to the point where we're down to our last work session and final tweaks, so we can go forward. Sort of like what we did with the lighting work today. So, yes, that's where we're at.
Okay, very good. Next agenda item. Impending NFIP-ESA regulations. This sounds like a difficult thing to handle.
And I'm going to try to give you the briefest overview as possible because things are constantly changing on this. In fact, I shared with Shelley a response by FEMA to the governor's request to like hold things off. But let me give you a little background information. This is the material that I sent to the city council, but I can summarize it here. Back in 2009, there was a lawsuit that basically made the argument, it came from a couple of environmental groups, that the flood regulations are basically impacting threatened and endangered species. And so the National Marine Fisheries Service went through a biological assessment and created a biological opinion that yes, indeed, FEMA regulations are impacting fish habitat. And so there was a series, this came out in 2016. There was a number of iterations going back and forth. And the intent was at some point for FEMA to go ahead and do what's called a environmental impact study that would kind of clarify some of the rules, regulations, assess it, get public input as required by federal law. But what happened is that pressure from the lawsuit accelerated everything. And so now what has occurred, and this is really the bottom line here, is cities will have to incorporate um, measures to create no net loss on fish habitat. There are, I think, 16 species, and these rules and regulations impact 31 of the 36 counties in the state and a total of 230 jurisdictions. One of them is Yamhill. At this juncture, we were given a choice, and we had to make a choice by December 1. And it's one option is to simply pass the model code. And the irony here is that the model code has not been refined yet, but it's close, I guess is the best way of saying it, to adopt the model code. The second option was to don't adopt the model code, but simply do things on a case by case basis, going through an assessment on whether or not someone's house expansion into the floodplain is going to impact fish habitat. The third option was to go ahead and just prohibit all new development within the flood hazard area. The whole thing is that they want to have no net loss, and that's things like you do not increase pervious surfaces, impervious surfaces. You have to make sure that there's adequate ways and channels for example, if you have a flood and the fish are stuck in like a higher ground, that when the waters recede, the fish can get back into the river. There was a lot of things that they had to consider. I've gone to a couple of classes, one on the model code and also one on how to do a case by case analysis. And there's guidelines on how to do this. In fact, there's interesting things. For example, one thing they want to do is preserve trees. And the reason for that is that it provides shade along the river and that keeps the water cool. So if you're going to go do a project that you're cutting down a tree of a certain size, you have to replace it by so many saplings. I think one of the bigger trees, it was like 5 to 1. So there's a lot of, it's not just removing vegetation, but replanting it. And there's a lot of things going on with this. I'm a little bit frustrated at this juncture because this was kind of thrown at us at the last minute. At this point, come December 1, I don't think we will have a model ordinance in place. In fact, I guarantee it. We just don't have the time to go through the Oregon land use process to do that. The other thing too is that FEMA and fisheries and those involved in the lawsuit did not quite understand the entire process of how Oregon does land use planning. We just can't, wave a magic wand and adopt something. We may want to, but we can't do it that way. We have public hearings. We go through a specific process, planning commission, city council, or planning commission and board of commissioners. And finally, it gets adopted into law. And they did not recognize that. The other thing too is that our housing regulations are very stringent on being clear and objective. Well, this throws a real monkey wrench into it, that if someone wants to build a house in a floodplain, which is allowed, I mean, we're not saying you can't do it, you can still do it. And it's not just elevating the structure, you have to make sure the property is designed, contoured, whatever else, and vegetation maintained to ensure that there's no net loss on fish habitat. So that's not clear and objective. That's going to be fairly subjective. And that runs contrary to our state laws. So I know the city has received a letter from Barry Elsner and Hammond on how to approach this. This is, I think the only thing I could say at this point is that it's complex. We're going to have to do it if we want to maintain membership in the National Flood Insurance Program. It's just going to take a little while to get there. And the only thing I could say at this juncture is really stay tuned.
Well, you said that we will not have a model ordinance ready by December. Who's we?
City of Yamhill.
So it's up to you to write a model ordinance? Aren't you waiting for model ordinances to be written by some organization that
They-
will meet
they
all this
have-
complex stuff?
Yes, they do have a model ordinance. It's like almost finalized sort of thing. The first thing we have to do is grant authority to the city council to go ahead and allow us to review, or the city of Yamhill, to grant city authority to review floodplain permits on a case-by-case basis with the goal of no net loss for fish habitat. Right now, we have no authority to do that. And this is where one of the conundrums came in. It's like we were being asked to administer rules and regulations that we had no authority to do. So the first thing first is go ahead and make those changes. Then once that's taken care of, then we take the next bite, if you will, of the apple, and we go ahead and make the code changes. So that's going to be coming down the pike too. So from a practical day-to-day standpoint, I'm not too worried that we're going to have I was thinking of a bad pun, a flood of applications, sorry. That we were going to have a lot of applications for development in the floodplain. It's fairly specified. There's a lot of options on property that you don't have to build in there. So I think it's going to be a rare occurrence that we are going to be compelled to do a case-by-case analysis. The thing is that we just have to keep moving forward. This has caused all sorts of consternation with planners, both county and the city, on how to implement this in a timely manner and also comply with state law. And we're hoping to get a little guidance from DLCD because, again, it's a model code, but it runs contrary to our clear and objective approach to housing.
So GOPD is who is working on a model code?
GOPD?
You used an acronym I didn't recognize. That sounded like GOPD is an organization
Oh,
that,
no. FEMA has put together a model code, and there was an organization that worked with FEMA to put together the model code. So I do have a copy of the model code. It's just a matter of we have to take it one step at a time. We first need authority to go ahead and do a case-by-case analysis. And then we go ahead and adopt the changes to the code. We're on now. FEMA is very anxious to settle this lawsuit, but they made it clear that they're not going to be chasing cities and counties down and, putting officials in jail for not following. They just want to make sure that there's a timeline when cities get this thing done. As I said, overall, I don't think it's going to be a significant impact in the short term because I just don't see a lot of floodplain development given our limited areas that it could be developed. But I think this is something we just want to make you aware that we're going to have to go through. You're going to be seeing this, and down the road, you're going to be asking, why are we making these changes? So I just thought I would prepare you, if you will.
there seemed to be a government, state government intervening here, saying to FEMA, please wait? Is that what I heard you say?
The governor did that. She wrote a letter to FEMA just trying to explain to them that we just can't immediately adopt regulations on land use. We have a process. And she was also upset with the fact that there was no local input on this. There was no local comments. There was no community involvement. There was no public hearings. Suddenly you got to do it. And she goes, that's not the way we do it here. And so a letter came back from FEMA. As I said, I sent it off to Shelley. They said, we're sorry to hear that. But frankly, we have to follow through because we're being pressured with the lawsuit. However, I don't want to sound sarcastic, but we'll be nice and kind as we can be given the circumstances. I think they feel pressure from two sides. One, the state saying, wait a minute, and the lawsuit is compelling them to go ahead and make the changes. So it's going to happen sooner rather than later. Originally, this was going to be presented as a final document for the model ordinance in 2026. And now we're having to do it beginning December 1, 2024. So that's the pressure that we're facing from planning. Again, I want to emphasize, I don't think this is going to have a significant impact on the city because of the limited areas that can be developed. I work in Nehalem, and a lot of that is under floodplain. So they have some serious issues, but I don't think it's going to be a major issue here with Yamhill. It's just something we got to do, and it's really a shame that it could not have been played out a lot better and got the community or the planning community and the state involved up front before these rules were basically tossed in her lap.
How does giving the city authority to rule on case by case initiate?
There is, I think the city attorney recommended that we just include, I think this is acceptable to FEMA too, just include a provision in a floodplain application that says you must provide sufficient information that indicates you comply with the NFIP ESA regulations. And so basically the burden is placed on the applicant as opposed to the city. When we adopt the model code, that will provide the guidelines necessary to assist an applicant. Until then, I could see a cottage industry for people coming out and making these applications. But it's pretty interesting and it has an impact. I don't think we're going to be hurt that bad. It's just that we need the authority. Again, you can't do anything unless you have the authority. And I don't think FEMA and fisheries quite understood there's a process that we have to deal with here.
How is that authority gained?
It will be, now there's two ways of doing it. They're making a code amendment, a quick code amendment in Nehalem, just a couple of quick tweaks to the floodplain regulations. Here, I believe the way we're going to do it is just require by resolution that the application, Shelley will be working with the city council on this, but would adopt likely by resolution a change in the floodplain permit application that requires conformance with the NFIP ESA. So again, we place the burden on the applicant, not the city.
The cottage industry is engineers, professionals being hired by landowners to write their application. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking for the short term. There's going to be some probably professionals doing this. This is not a cheap proposition to do it. Now, I know we're talking Puget Sound numbers, but they were saying for a major project in Seattle to go through the analysis could be $40,000, $50,000. That's for a huge project. And that's again, Seattle pay grade. But I've gone through an application and it's not extremely difficult, but it is challenging. I'll put it to you that way. It is challenging and you've got to be very careful.
So I'm just still a little fuzzy. Somehow putting in an application that you must comply with these federal regulations is going to give the authority to the city council. I'm not quite putting that together.
No. What it does is give authority to the city administratively to go ahead and review these on a case-by-case basis.
The city, okay.
The city,
So
yes, thank you. But the council, someone has to make the decision to go ahead and place this on the floodplain permit. And that's the recommendation, I believe, from the attorney.
And the city council will discuss, motion, and approve that. Nothing to do with the planning commission.
Not at this juncture. And so I don't know if that's going to be handled in-house or through the council, but they just will need to be aware that we need the authority to go ahead and do this. Otherwise, one of the attorneys I spoke with at one of these meetings, he sort of made the point, well, until that authority is there, you don't want to be sued by the developers. No, you have a choice. You're either sued by the developers or you're going to be sued by FEMA for not following through. So it's like, here's some stopgap measures you can work with. So my discussion with other planners in communities that are facing this is they're just trying to get that authority in place first. And then they're going to be spending time to go ahead and go through the changes with the flood hazard ordinances. So this is just going to be ongoing. I'd rather talk to you about this now than when you see it with code language.
Thank you. I think I have a rudimentary understanding now. Thanks for your patience.
Okay, no problem. This is complex. Don't be embarrassed, believe me.
What was the question?
Is this just the Yamhill River below us?
No, there's a total of 31 counties out of the 36 that are subject to these new regulations, and that impacts 230 jurisdictions. I've seen a map where it's like the only place that isn't impacted is Southeast Oregon.
I think what Sue was asking was the impact, where for us, where does it impact us in our community? What areas?
Oh, okay. Anywhere that is within the flood hazard overlay zone, period. Because the way they look at it, you may not have fish running up a creek, but it is part of a system. And so since it's part of a system, you have to look at the whole drainage basin. You have to look at, there's a term they use. You have to look at the waters. And if you're in a flood hazard overlay, which portions of the city are, they are subject to these regulations because maybe you don't have fish there, but there are, again, it's all part of a system.
Okay, I imagine, Sue, you could pull up a map online and flood hazard overlay, Yamhill
Well,
City.
you'll see it on Thursday if
Okay.
I pull up the
And it's
local land.
behind my house. I do.
Yeah, right behind you.
Just to add one thing that, in addition to the governor writing, I think it was 2 letters, the entire congressional delegation wrote letters as well to FEMA, and no change. So,
Wow,
So,
all right.
if we have to decide by December 1st, can we change, like, as of December 1st, yeah, this is what we're going to do, but a year down the road, can we
I don't
change?
know what the rule is on changing it. That's a good question. Do you know, Walt?
Actually, at this juncture, the only thing you could do as of December 1 is do a case by case.
But let's say 2 years from now,
You have to adopt by June 30th of 2025.
So do we need to have authority for the council prior to December 1, or does the council just need to make their decision by December 1st?
Shelley, I would like to chat with you about that because I think we might be able to do it without having, I probably just threw out the idea that maybe the council needs to sort of grant a resolution or something. Can I chat with you separately about that? Because there might be a way to do it without necessarily going too much further. I think the attorney had a good idea.
Okay, let's do that.
So we'll just kind of go with that. Would that be fair?
Yeah, let's talk tomorrow if you're available.
Okay, no, that'd be great.
Wonderful.
All right, well, are we done with 5D, the pending regulations?
Boy, howdy.
All right, let's move on to information and announcements. Shelley, do you have anything for us?
Other than Thursday's meeting, I do not.
Okay, and that's right here in this room at 6 o'clock this Thursday.
6 to 8 o'clock, and the consultants will be presenting, and then they'll open it up for Q&A.
Great. Any other announcements, concerns for the good of the order?
I do.
Yes.
I'd like to wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving and also a safe one too.
Thank you. You too.
Appreciate that.
Well, we will be reconvening on December 16th. And until then, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. So Shelley, Angie is not here because, oh, okay. I guess what I did, maybe it's not my business why she's here, not here. She'll be back next time? This is a one-off.
Yes, she will be back.
Okay, good.